When he landed on poor Virginia, he crushed her bladder.
We'll recount the public's volatile reaction to the Arbuckle scandal.
Arbuckle, this wonderful comedian, has let everyone down and is a pervert.
And we'll dispel some myths about Fatty's so-called victim.
She basically was a hooker.
The year was 1921. Many significant events and discoveries were taking place not only in the United States, but also around the world. Albert Einstein is awarded Nobel Prize in Physics for his discovery of the photoelectric effect, an important step in the evolution of the field of quantum mechanics. Amelia Earhart takes her first flying lesson and buys her first plane. Insulin is discovered by Canadian scientists Frederick Banting and Charles Best. Warren G. Harding is inaugurated as the 29th President of the United States. The New York Giants defeat the New York Yankees 5-3 in the last of the experimental best-of-9 games World Series. Also in baseball, Kennesaw Mountain Landis becomes the first commissioner in the Major League. Winston Churchill signs the Anglo-Irish Treaty, leading to the creation of the Irish Free State. In France, Coco Chanel introduces her iconic fragrance, Chanel No. 5. Russia is hit with one of the worst famines in history, as droughts led to the deaths of an estimated 6 million people. The Communist Party of China is formed with Mao Zedong among its founding members. Adolf Hitler is named leader of the Nazi Party in Germany. Roscoe Conkling Arbuckle was born in the tiny town of Smith Center, Kansas, on March 24, 1887.
Roscoe C. Arbuckle, Fatty to his fans the world over, was the most financially successful comic of the silent screen era. A master physical comedian whose talents far outweighed his size. Fatty paved the way for stars like Jackie Gleason, John Candy, and Chris Farley. But with every comedy comes tragedy, and Fatty was served more than his share.
Immediately living up to his future nickname, Fatty weighed close to 14 pounds at birth. His father, a slender man and staunch Democrat, did not believe that Fatty was his son, and named him after a Republican politician he despised. When Arbuckle was only 2 years old, his family packed up and decided to go west, relocating to Santa Ana, California. After a rough early childhood of physical abuse from his father and the untimely death of his mother, young Arbuckle ventured out on his own at the age of 12, working various odd jobs, including washing dishes at a hotel in San Jose to support himself. A naturally gifted singer, Arbuckle's talents were first discovered when a performer who was staying at the hotel overheard his overt overtures wafting from the kitchen. He was invited to perform in an amateur talent show. He sang and danced, but his act did not impress the audience. Facing the dreaded vaudevillian hook, Arbuckle nimbly avoided the crook's pull, bounding across the stage before performing a desperate dive, somersaulting into the orchestra pit. Much to the delight of the previously subdued crowd, a star was born. After a successful career as a singer and comedic actor in various touring vaudeville troupes, Fatty decided to take his talents to the silver screen, where he quickly became one of the biggest stars of the silent film era. He made his debut in the 1909 film Ben's Kid, and by 1913 he had become a bona fide star as a prominent member of Universal Pictures' classic comedic film series Keystone Cops. As an actor, and later a director and producer, Fatty mentored fellow actors Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, giving them supporting roles in several of his films. In 1920, Paramount Pictures offered Fatty a contract worth $1 million per year to star exclusively in their films.
So Roscoe took a director, Freddie Fishback, and an actor, Lowell Sherman, and piled into his fancy Pierce Arrow and drove from Hollywood to San Francisco, and they arrived in San Francisco late in the afternoon of September 3rd. They had booked a suite on the 12th floor of the St. Francis.
Not letting prohibition stand in their way, someone contacted a bootlegger and a roaring party started. The guests included a notorious Hollywood troublemaker named Maud Delmont and her friend, an aspiring young actress named Virginia Rappé.
Around 3 o'clock, Arbuckle retired from the party in order to get dressed to go sightseeing with a friend. What happened in the following 10 minutes is heavily disputed. What we do know is that Virginia Rappé became very ill at some point in the night. The hotel doctor was called to the room and examined her. The doctor found that Rappé was heavily intoxicated and gave her morphine to calm her down. 2 days after the party, Virginia's symptoms had only worsened, so her friend, Maud Delmont, checked her into the hospital. By the following day, Virginia Rappé had died. At the hospital, Delmont told the doctor that Virginia had been raped by Roscoe Arbuckle, and the trauma she suffered from being crushed under his large frame caused her bladder to rupture, leading to her death 3 days after the party. The doctor immediately examined Rappé's body and found no evidence of rape.
The press had a field day. The bigger the headlines, the more newspapers sold.
When it came out in San Francisco that Roscoe Arbuckle was involved in a girl's death, the circumstances of which really weren't known, the press, particularly the Hearst press, they glommed onto the story like nobody's business and blew the story out of proportion. They talked to Maud Delmont, made front-page news out of the thing. The truth didn't make good copy, so they ignored it and went on innuendo and supposition.
Anybody that wanted their name in the paper, all they had to do was say, oh yeah, Roscoe Arbuckle did this, did that. And as long as it was negative and bad, they would print it.
Millionaire publisher William Randolph Hearst, who owned the nationally circulated San Francisco Examiner, claimed the scandal led to the most newspaper sales since the sinking of the Lusitania. Due to immense pressure from the media and the public, Arbuckle was arrested and charged with murder. However, it was eventually reduced to manslaughter.
So when this scandal came up and this woman died, who had very dubious background, by the way, and he was blamed for this because it was his party.
The autopsy report revealed that Virginia Rappé died of a ruptured bladder and peritonitis, an infection that, when untreated, is deadly. Police believe that Arbuckle caused the injury.
Then her story goes on about how Arbuckle dove on the bed and that he was impotent, and when he landed on poor Virginia, he crushed her bladder.
But gynecologist Dr. Rachel Arias explains why that scenario is highly unlikely.
It would be beyond medical credibility that the weight of another individual would rupture a normal bladder.
San Francisco District Attorney Matthew Brady seemed less concerned about how Virginia died and more concerned about how the case could help his career.
The district attorney up there was handling all these things himself, and he was wanting to be governor very badly, and he was going to make his reputation and become governor as a result of the Arbuckle trial.
Arbuckle was put through 3 trials in a media circus before eventually being acquitted of all charges. The first trial began on November 14, 1921. Despite obvious weaknesses in his case, D.A. Brady called numerous witnesses of dubious character to the stand to testify against Arbuckle. It was later revealed that many of these witnesses were forced to lie on the stand, having been offered various plea deals for past transgressions by Brady. Among these witnesses was Zay Prevon, a guest at the party, who claimed that Rapay had told her, "Fatty hurt me," while on her deathbed. Maud Delmont, Arbuckle's chief accuser, was presumed to be Brady's star witness, but she never testified at any of the trials. The key witness for the defense was Arbuckle himself. Many of Fatty's movie star friends who wanted to testify in his defense were prohibited from speaking publicly on his behalf by the Paramount movie studio in order to avoid getting caught up in the scandal and jeopardizing their future profitability as actors in Hollywood. Arbuckle gave his version of the events on that fateful day. When he retired to his room to change clothes, he found Rapay vomiting in his bathroom. He then helped clean her up and carried her to the nearby bed to rest. Thinking she was just overly intoxicated, he left her in the care of her friends and rejoined the party. When he returned to the room just a few minutes later, he found Rapay on the floor. After putting her back on the bed, he left the room to get help from the hotel doctor. When the hotel doctor arrived, Rapay was taken to another room to rest. With others looking after Rapay, Arbuckle left for the sightseeing tour and then drove back to Los Angeles. When other partygoers then entered the room, they found Rapay tearing at her clothes. This was something that people have claimed she did often when she was drunk. The party guests tried a number of strange treatments, including covering Rapay with ice, but her symptoms only worsened. Following almost 2 full days of deliberation, the jury returned with a 10-2 not guilty verdict. A mistrial was declared. Fatty's first trial ended with a hung jury. The jury in this trial reversed course and found Fatty guilty by a count of 10-2. Another mistrial was declared. D.A. Brady turned around and prosecuted Arbuckle for the same crime in a second trial. At the second trial, the defense introduced evidence about Rapay's promiscuous sexual history and alcoholic tendencies. The defense was so convinced that they would receive an acquittal that they made the strategic decision of not putting Fatty on the stand. This decision backfired, however. Some of the jurors viewed Fatty's absence from the stand as proof of his guilt. After over 2 weeks of testimony with nearly 60 witnesses, both sides rested their respective cases.
On March 13, 1922, the third and final trial of the people of California versus Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle began.
The prosecution made quite a heavy case, but in the meantime, Roscoe had been able to get a very good attorney. Gavin McNabb proceeded to present a tremendous defense.
The defense again became proactive. Arbuckle took the stand, repeating his side of the story. The main prosecution witness, Zay Prevon, had escaped house arrest and left the country. For this trial, the jury deliberated for only a couple of minutes and came back with a verdict of not guilty. Most of the jury's time spent deliberating was actually put towards drafting an apology letter to Arbuckle, which the jury foreman read aloud. The letter